Good morning or good afternoon if you're in the another part of the world. I'm Richard McCann. I'm going to moderate this workshop. We are doing Behind the 2020 Robots, and we have a great lineup of mentors and students to talk about their robots and to answer your questions about those robots. So today's agenda is we're going to start by introducing myself, and then we're going to walk through the agenda, and I will then have the individual presenters make their introductions as well. As I said, I'm the moderator. I'm the strategy mentor for 1678. And if this was a live competition, I would be one of your masters of ceremony. And I'm going to now go through what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to be focusing on the 2020 robots and the competition that some of these robots participated in. There are other workshops over the next 2 days, and I'm hoping that you're planning on attending. There's another one on analyzing the game, the what's of kickoff at 1 p.m. today. So that's Pacific Standard Time. Tomorrow, there's a workshop on strategic design, also at 1 p.m. And then there will be another workshop at 3 p.m., Simple Robots That Win. And I hope that you make all of those presentations. And we have a great program on other topics as well. We're going to walk through with short presentations by each one of the individual mentors and students from these various teams. And you can post your questions in the YouTube chat box, and I will pick those up and read those questions to the participants. I probably won't be able to get to all of your questions, and if there's a lack of questions, I have a full slate of questions myself that I'm really interested to hear about from these people. But now let's walk through and introduce who the individuals are that are going to be talking today. And I want to start by first acknowledging our 2020 Woody Flowers Award winner, and I'm sure that exquisite lawn care is one of the attributes of being a Woody Flowers winner. This is Lucien Junkin from 118. And so, Lucien, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, Richard. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. So, I'm Lucien Junkin. I'm the head coach of the Robonauts. I've been with the Robonauts over 2 decades, been the head coach. I guess we used to call it lead mentor back in the day, for over 20 years. And I'm also the NASA Robotics Alliance project lead. You're probably most familiar with that project. This is where all of the grants. So when you hear about a first team getting a NASA grant, that is the program that it comes out of. And the head of that program is Dave Lavery. And I'm also, my day job is the chief engineer of the Space Exploration Vehicle and the Lunar Terrain Vehicle. So in the upper picture, you'll see a vehicle back there. That's the Space Exploration Vehicle. That's a vehicle, that's a prototype that's out at White Sands that we were testing for the moon and Mars, and that is for astronauts to live in up to 14 days. And then there's the Lunar Terrain Vehicle that is a kind of a dune buggy for the moon and for Mars. Thanks for having me here, Richard.
Thank you. So, Brando, you're up. Or Adrienne, sorry.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name's Adrienne Emerson. I'm from FRC Team 148. I have a much less cool job than Lucien. I'm the District Robotics Director for Greenville ISD, so I kind of oversee our robotics programs, K through 12. I'm an alumni of Team 191 and Team 229, and I also am the event coordinator for the First in Texas Greenville District. So I'm just excited to talk robots today and remember what the short season we had was like.
And next up, Brando.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon from the East Coast here. My name is Brandon Holley. I'm the head coach of the Neutrons. I'm also, in the daytime, product creation leader at Sonos. Basically, you can think of that as a chief engineer for a specific Sonos product. I've been working at Sonos for 8 years. I was an FRC participant back in the day on FRC 11, and I've been a mentor for 125 for over 15 years now. I'm also pretty involved in running events, so seen many of you out there either as a event chair or a kickoff coordinator or Beantown Blitz offseason coordinator, and you may have seen my dogs, Pasta and Pesto, right here.
Okay, thank you. And Nathan, you're up.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Nathan McAllister. Not quite as interesting as all of these three people that just introduced themselves, but I'm a high school senior on 1678. This is my fourth year of FRC and my second year as the 1678 design lead. Also got to operate our robot on Einstein in 2019, which is super exciting. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, and I just want to go over why we've selected these teams to be here. So in 2020, teams 148 and 118 teamed up with 7179 to score the world high score at the Plano, Texas district event, scoring 263 points. 1678 teamed up with 973 and Team 4 to score 252 points at LA North, which was the week 1 world high score. And then, of course, 125, they didn't get to play, but they won the Northeast District Championship in 2019 and won 5 blue banners that year. These teams have combined for 133 blue banners, 18 Chairman's Awards, 8 Woody Flowers Finalists Awards, and, of course, Lucien won the Woody Flowers Award last year. They've been 19 times, have been on Einstein, and have won 6 world championships between them. 148 and 118 have teamed up 5 times to successfully win events, and 1678 teamed with both 118 and 148 on Einstein as well. And 125 and 1678 have teamed up together along with a couple other teams to manage and create the Compass Alliance, which reaches out to FRC teams and supports them. And they are a key part of our workshops for today. So I'm going to start with some questions for each one of you. Or well, actually, I want to have you each go through your presentations. I'm jumping ahead here. So Lucien, I'm going to start with you if you want to go ahead. Whoops, I think you need to speak louder. You're on mute.
Yeah, can we flip to that slide, the robot wheel slide? So we do something on 118. Our whole focus for the entire first weekend is coming up with this Robonauts robot wheel list. And as you can see, I won't get into the details of the list, but we basically create what all the things that a robot can do, and then we decide unanimously as a team, and some of them are much more difficult than others, as to how to come to a unanimous decision. And then we basically reduce it down to our robot wheel. Sometimes it's a pretty full list. And a couple of things this year that were really, I would say contentious, might be the right word, was the ability to go underneath the control panel, underneath the spinner, and exactly where to be able to shoot from. So as you can see by our robot, that we decided as a team to go underneath the control panel, which might have been a good plan, or might have not been a good plan. But that's generally how we do things, and that's kind of our strategy of our robot. And I won't go through our robot in detail. I'll let you ask questions. And do we have we got the Everybot also here?
Let me see. We do.
Yeah. And just real quick, we also at the same time on that weekend, our alumni, we all sit around and come up with the Everybot robot wheel list. And so most of you are familiar with the Everybot, a robot that teams can build for under $1,000 with the kit of parts. So, and then the big one this year was, do we shoot or do we not shoot with Everybot? And as you can tell, we we kind of analyzed the game and we decided shooting was not accurate shooting with a $1,000 robot was not what we thought we could tackle. So we kept everything, pick up 5 power cells and really pump them into the bottom port. So that's the Everybot. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks for doing that Everybot every year. This has been a great addition to FRC and helping teams that are just starting out.
Thanks.
So Brando, go through 125.
Yeah, so obviously we didn't get to play this year, so some people may not have seen our robot. We did end up putting out a reveal video. It was filmed with pieces of footage. We didn't realize we were going to be shut down as quickly as we were, so we didn't actually have a chance to release the robot the way we wanted to. But like 118 and Lucien went through, and this has just been picked up by ourselves over the years by looking at other successful teams and working our process. We do a very similar strategy for basically the first week where we are trying to nail down what the robot is exactly going to do. Ours is broken down to need, want, and nice to have. You can see our chart here on the right. I'll spare you the details. A lot like 118, and I'm sure every other team that went in and critically analyzed the game, driving under the color wheel was a very contentious discussion for us. And unlike 118 and everyone else on this call, we decided to not go under the color wheel. And I'm happy to talk a lot more about that. But general quick thought process was that our robot, we wanted to be a complementary robot to a top team at an event and force the event to plan for our robot specifically. Not to say that going under the color wheel and cycling very quickly is not impressive or important. It absolutely is. But we wanted to be a game-changing robot and force both alliances to have to plan around us. And so that's how we ended up being tall. And I can talk a lot more about that as we go along. But that's the robot. The turret can spin 540 degrees. There's a button climber. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to use that yet, but we are very happy with how the robot turned out. We had autonomous, very dialed in, multiple 8-ball autos, working on more. So we were really excited to get out there. Rug got pulled out from under us literally 2 hours before our first event. But that's how it goes, how it went for a lot of teams this year. But very happy to be here, very happy to show off what we got.
Great. Yeah. So 973, who was 1678's partner at LA North, had a very similar and an extremely successful configuration. So I think you probably had a very good season coming up. So
Looks
Adrienne,
like some robo wrangling going on in that with that 125 robot.
So
All
go
right.
ahead, Adrienne.
Well, yeah, sure. So there's a picture of our robot, and we go through a really similar structure as 118 and 125. I think a lot of these teams have started to go through this process where on kickoff day we go through what our robot must do, and we this year kind of approached it a little bit differently, where our must list was pretty short and our maybe list was really long, because in looking at the game right off the bat, we really had a lot of questions that we weren't sure about right on kickoff day. So our must list was just score stupid fast. That's been on our must list for the past few years. And then we actually decided that was so important that you can see in the second list down there, we actually made a whole list of things that we could do to make sure that we could score stupid fast all the time. And there's a lot of things that, we thought would go into that. We also had on there the WOF, the Wheel of Fortune. That's what we call the color wheel. We didn't actually put that on our robot. We were planning to do that after the Plano event, which, never really happened. And then we had a lot of questions, were we going to do a buddy climb? Were we going to do a turret? Were we going to do swerve? Were we going to go under the low bar? And throughout this, I'm, kind of happy to talk about what went into all those decisions, because the only things we really decided to do on there were the turret and the swerve. Oh, I guess the low bar too. So most of those maybes turned into yeses. But as you can see, we really tried to focus most of our initial brainstorming on how we can make sure we can score as fast as possible. And I think that most of our decisions this year were just lining up to that. So, when we decided to go to swerve, it was so we could score faster. When we decided to do a turret, so we could score faster. And we just kind of went through our whole season with that in mind. So that was one of our big things from the beginning. But like I said, happy to talk about any of these things more as we go through. But this is just kind of our thought process on day 1 and 2 for the most part for the season. So.
Great. If you want to see stupid fast scoring, you can go on the Blue Alliance and look for the Plano, Texas event. And there's some pretty amazing running around by that robot. It's not changed some of our thinking on our team after watching that. So Nathan, you're up next.
All right. So obviously we do a very similar thing to all of the other 3 teams here. This is the list that we took a picture of on day 2, the day after kickoff. So our general schedule is game manual takes up half of the first day on kickoff, and then we jump right into a list of what we could do. And then by the end of the second day, we have this list of what we will do. And so I want to point out some of the bullet points. Under general, you'll see we actually chose not to fit under the control panel, which may come as a surprise. That is written down here. And then we also have a yet to prototype box, reach the rung at any height, and also shoot into the inner port from far away from the trench run. And so, it just shows that you can make these lists, but as soon as you jump into like how you're going to accomplish this, some things become clearer. And so, as soon as we figured out, okay, we can fit a climber under the trench run, which is really the deciding factor on not fitting under the trench run. We figured, okay, why not go into the trench run if we can? Once we figured out this folding climber design that you see in the picture. So that was really kind of the process. We prioritized that just because we didn't know how we were going to do it, but once we figured out how, we were comfortable enough to take that leap and fully embrace the short bot. Feel free, like these lists are obviously specifying a lot of things, but you can leave things up to prototyping. And we often do leave a couple things up to prototyping historically. So.
Great. Yep. So with that, I'm going to start throwing some questions out there. I have some of my own questions. I'm going to start with Lucien, and I want to ask him, how do you decide what you're not going to do with your robot, and what did you decide not to do with your robot in 2020?
So, as I shared a few minutes ago, we sit in a big circle. And when I say a big circle, I mean 60 students and the 20 mentors. And we strategize and discuss the game on Saturday afternoon. We learn the rules, and then Sunday we come in and we start strategizing the game. We go through the analysis, and then we have a robot can list, and then things start falling out of the robot can. And we start having a show of hands and saying, should we be able to push another robot around? That's one of those things that have dropped off our list over the last few years. We typically agree that we should be able to hold our ground, but being able to run away from a robot is much more compelling than being able to push a robot away and then get away from a robot. So that's one of the major. We're not going to put resources toward having a drivetrain that can play defense and push people around. All of our defense will be done strategically with getting in the way of another robot. the shooting far field was another, it was a hope, it was a dream, but we were satisfied with our decision that if we were going to go underneath the control panel, then we would stay right there in the trench and shoot right on side of the control panel. So the only real shooting that we did prototyping wise from on the what we call the near side of the spinner of the control panel was we did some just to see what kind of accuracy that we would get out of the different prototypes that we had. But we stayed at the trench area. Whereas now that we see robots now, we have every intent to build a new robot for 2021. So we're going to get in that same big circle, and we're going to revisit some of these do you go under the spinner or not? And I think there's going to be some compelling reasons, like 125 found out that that going underneath is not necessarily the most advantageous, especially if you can find a way to shoot long. So maybe a lot of our prototyping, if we get back in the shop, which it looks like we will be, can we shoot long? Obviously, the Roboteers have shown some pretty stellar accuracy from afar. So those are a couple of the things that we chose not to do with our robot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams it went through the same exact thing, under the bar or not. It really was, I think, a coin flip for a lot of folks, and in our particular case, we saw that and jumped to prototyping right away. We spent that first week really focusing on creating a prototype that could shoot far and answer that question. And as we did that, and we found a couple little tricks along the way, we realized that it was viable for us to shoot long, and it started forcing a lot of trade-offs for the team. One of those things for being tall is getting the ball up to speed before it gets to the shooter itself. That we found to be a really big factor, and I'm sure other teams also found that too. So that really lent itself to being tall. And that was just one of those things that I really think could have gone either way. We thought that there'd probably be less tall robots than short robots, and that would give us the best chance overall of partnering with the best cycling team at whatever competition we were at.
And going short instead of going tall also means you have to actuate your mechanism for the spinner. So if you go tall, the spinner, the control panel is easily actuated. Whereas if you go short, that's another actuation. And then the old decapitation of the whole hood on your robot problem. If you don't punch the right button as you book up under the control panel at 15 feet a second, that's a bad day. And
that never happened.
Yeah, we've already had that bad day in practice. That's another reason.
Same here.
Nathan's our perfect operator.
Yeah,
so
one of
Adrienne,
we had
your thoughts.
Sure. We had this discussion along with everybody else, and I think with Brandon kind of said it was a coin flip, and we went back and forth a lot as well. And the big thing for us was that we wanted to be able to get those balls that were behind the control panel in autonomous, and that was really the main deciding factor for us to decide to go under. But just like Lucien said, we had a couple bad days in practice where we decapitated our our shooter. And, it was definitely a little stressful those nights. But unlike the 118, we've kind of decided that for 2021, we are going to keep the same basic robot. We're going to do some iterations. So, we're kind of all in on the short robot at this point. We don't know, depending on how they change the game, if those factors that we decided on to go short are going to stay relevant. But we're pretty happy with the overall robot performance right now. So we're just going to stay going under the low bar. Eventually, like Lucien said too, if we ever put a control panel device on our robot, it does add a lot of complexity, and that was definitely a thing that we talked about when making that decision. Also, with the climber, it makes the climber a lot more difficult when you have to kind of fold it in that small space. So it definitely caused a lot of other decisions to be a lot more difficult once we made that decision. But overall, we decided that the pros kind of outweighed the cons, and that was a large conversation for our team at the beginning of the year.
So Nathan, what do you have to say?
Yeah, of course. So for 1678, as you saw, we chose to go tall initially, and that was because we were pretty confident initially that we were going to be able to shoot from long. And although we kind of ended up transitioning to a short bot, we, throughout build season, still tested this long shot, like pretty much up to the tee, LA North. Days before, we were testing this long shot, trying to get it to work. And we ended up being really glad that we did go short, just because of the inaccuracy that was the long shot that a lot of teams experienced. In our first few matches of LA North, you can see us trying to hit that long shot, maybe getting 2 or 3 in out of the 5 at a very slow shot rate. So kind of in that vein, we found that it was much better to, just go into the trench run with the short robot and score quickly on the other side, instead of having to take a long time to speed up, take a long time each time we shoot, to speed back up to full speed and shoot again. And so it ended up being really helpful for us to be a short bot, instead of trying to hit that long shot every time we went to shoot.
Great. So, Brandon, I'm going to ask one more question. Then I have some questions from the audience. So your team did not play, and so you got the advantage to see some of the other teams. What are some of the things that you learned from watching other competitions that may have changed your thinking about your robot and how you're going forward?
Yeah, it's this happens even like without COVID. If you're playing later, if you're not playing until week 2 or week 3, or even later in the season, you get some anxiety about like what you see happening out on the field, because you're like, well, 148 and 118 are destroying right now, and they're short, and we just went through all this trouble to make this tall robot that can shoot from far away. And so you have that anxiety. But the one thing, maybe I can use this little platform here, the season was only really 2.5 weeks long. And if you rewind the clock to previous seasons and you look at how the game evolves by the time you get to week 5, 6 and district championships, the game always changes pretty significantly. And we were really looking forward to watching that game change, because we felt like it was going to continue to shift to our favor as people realized that robots may be better in specific zones and playing more of a zone offense, as people started to figure out more about what the third robot on an alliance could be doing as a flex role, whether it's defense, whether it's stealing or starving the field for the other alliance. So despite that, though, we did learn a few things. The climbing aspect of stuff seemed interesting. We put, I would say, a decent effort into the buddy climb. It came together late. We left space for it. It seems fairly clear that long term, and that we wouldn't be using the buddy climb by the time we got to our district championship or championship, if we got that far. It was always our intention that the buddy climb would help us in our earlier events and eke out a ranking point here or there where we needed it. But I think that was something that a lot of teams learned. We were probably likely not going to be using that mechanism all that often. And further in the end game, how teams lined up and how they orchestrated that and got the whole thing working. I think there was a lot to learn looking at how those first few events played out. There was some unexpected traffic jams, I think, for a lot of teams, and that was definitely something to factor in for us going into our next events.
Great. So, Adrienne, what did you learn from watching other teams?
We got to watch a few events. We were actually lucky enough that our district event that's at our high school was week 1, and then we competed week 2. So we kind of were in the thick of competition for the 2 weeks of competition that existed. And I totally agree with Brando. The game evolves in magnitudes over the season, and also depending at what competition you're at, what level of competition you're at. So district championship usually looks a lot different than districts, and championship usually looks a lot different than district championships. That's what we learned last year, our first year, really in districts. And so, one of the things we talked about a lot, and Brando was talking about with the buddy climb, is we talked about the decision to put a buddy climber on. And we, at the beginning of the season, always talk about our goals. And one of our goals is to win a world championship. And so we talked about how we do that. And we discussed how at championship level, we expect to be able to get a third partner and, second partner that should be able to climb. We looked at the data from our championship partners in 2018 and 2019 and saw that a significant number of them were able to either do a level 2 or level 3 climb last year, or were able to hang in 2018. And so we decided that at the championship level, that buddy climb wasn't going to be important. And so we were going to put our resources, our design resources and, parts of the robot into other areas like scoring stupid fast and things like that. Now we have that unique ability to kind of make that decision early in the season because we're pre-qualified for championship, which we know a lot of other teams aren't. And so we definitely don't take that for granted, but we do, keep it in mind when we're making decisions on the team. So, that was one of the biggest things that we decided not to do this year. And I think that watching competition, we were pretty sold on the fact that we didn't make that choice. Even in Plano, we had a lot of partners that could climb, and we felt pretty confident in that. So,
yeah, it's a really good point. On 1678, that was actually a little bit of an oversight on our part, just because we try to always design our machines to win regionals primarily. We don't have the luxury of being pre-qualified, but we decided to go with the buddy climb and actually never used it at LA, even though it was on a robot the whole time. We were really surprised by the amount of teams that had consistent climbs, and we were able to make it work most matches with other teams, even though, we didn't always go the way we wanted it to. A lot of teams were able to climb, and we ended up being able to coordinate most matches with other teams that could climb on our alliance. So yeah, and I definitely agree with what you guys were saying about how on champs level, most teams are going to be able to climb. And we were actually, after LA, planning to just remove the buddy climb system from our robot to save weight and hope to develop another shooter. But obviously we didn't get the chance to do that. And we also definitely learned from LA North. Obviously we didn't have competitions before us. We were week 1, but we definitely learned that there wasn't much value in the control panel in regional competitions, but we definitely foresaw that it would be very important on the champs level, and wanted to kind of revamp that mechanism as well going forward.
And Lucien, what did you see that you learned?
Just real quick, super similar to everybody else. We had a Robo Wrangler. Actually, we had the person to help with the Robo Wrangler on our team, Jesse, and we had a Robo Wrangler prototyped, and integrated into the robot, and it did not fit, and it did not meet weight, and it was pretty slick mechanism that I think a lot of students wished it would have got on the robot. But we came, analysis wise, we came to the same conclusion as everybody else, that maybe the buddy lift, it certainly may help you get to the number one seed. But when it comes to Einstein, you're not going to use it on Einstein, because the major thing is you really want to be on the floor scoring all the way to the bitter end before you go climb. And if you have to go hang out with your buddy to go climb early, then that's kind of where our buddy climb kind of started to fall off the robot. Other things that we learned, evolution of the game is certainly something we were planning for. We were starting to explore different shots. As we start to see other people take the shots and the autons. The autons, I would say traditionally, we steal autons from other teams as we see them come online. We try to make our first auton pretty robust, and then by the time that we see other teams, we're like, oh, we probably should go get those balls from the trench or from wherever. So that's what we really learn is, and we do study other teams. I mean, as soon as we see the first tournament, we make sure that we have enough energy and design cycles that we learn from what they do and that we get back in the shop. And now without bag, that makes it a lot more compelling to really work harder and really schedule out having let's just admit it, having more like a 12 to 14 week build season versus a 6 to 7 week build season.
Yeah, oh God.
Go ahead, Adrienne.
One of the things I think, besides all of the obvious things of being, getting this season, shut down by COVID and things like that, one of the biggest disappointments for me was, since this was the first season with no bag, we put a lot of time into developing how we were going to approach the season differently than what we normally do. And so we had made very specific ideas and how we were going to utilize our time. Like, we didn't have our control panel mechanism on for Plano because we knew we probably weren't going to need it for Plano. I'm really glad that 118 had theirs ready to go. But we specifically kind of put off development of that entire mechanism because we were like, okay, well, we can focus on, making sure our drivetrain and our shooter and all of that is up to snuff for the first competition, put that control panel mechanism on for the second competition because we know we're probably going to need it for district champs. And so we want to test it at our second district. Then if we get the opportunity to go to district champs, we're going to need it there, and we're going to need it for championship. And then we also were kind of, like Lucien was talking about, doing our autonomous development in the same way. We nailed down 3 very specific autonomouses that we thought were going to be very useful during week 2, but we knew we weren't necessarily going to need those autonomouses for the rest of the season, and we were going to develop the ones that we needed to work with our partners better and things like that. And so not being able to see the differences in how this year would have evolved different than past seasons just because of the no bag, I was really disappointed that we kind of missed out on all that. So, I mean, it does evolve every year, but I think this year it was going to be even more different than it normally is just because of the no bag.
So,
Adrienne, is it autonomous or autonomy?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I need some English teacher to come help me with that one. Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't know.
So, Adrienne, there's a question for you. What added benefit did 148 feel a turreted shooter on swerve would have over a non-turreted shooter on swerve? I was wondering the same thing of how do you aim with a turret and swerve?
This is a great question. I have really no idea how we decided that was the best option. I feel like I was at all those meetings and really couldn't pinpoint the moment that a turreted swerve was really the way we decided to go. If you ask anybody on 148, by the way, everybody on the team was like all in on swerve. We had prototyped a West Coast product swerve in the off season, and everybody was like real gung ho on the swerve. And I was the person that was the most against it. And I missed literally one meeting the entire build season. And that was the meeting that the team decided to build swerve. And they swear it wasn't on purpose, but you all can be the judge of that. But so once we, had the swerve, we were kind of driving it around, and going along with being able to score stupid fast, we wanted to be able to score at any second from any part of the field. And so when you think about being able to do that, you always want your shooter to be locked on to the goal. So as soon as you pick up a ball, if you have the ability to shoot from where you picked up that goal, if your shooter can shoot from that angle or that distance or whatever, you just want to be able to go straight into the goal, floor to goal. So that's when we decided that the turret was going to be important. If we're picking up balls that come out of the, whatever that thing was called, I don't know, when the human player dumps them on the field, if we want to pick up from there and be able to drive over and shoot the fastest, we needed our, drivetrain and our intake and our shooter to kind of be, we never really knew what that orientation was going to be. So we decided to, go with swerve, and then also decided to go with the turret. Was it the best decision? I don't know. It seems kind of excessive when you think about it, but it really does score really fast. So I guess it was okay.
Yeah, watching your videos, yes, it was quite successful. Anybody else have any other thoughts on swerve? Brent, is 125 a tank or a swerve drive? I didn't see on the photo.
We are maybe one of the tankiest tanks in modern FRC histories. It's an 8-wheel drive, and the wheels are 3 inches wide. So I can talk about that a little bit if we want to go into it
that's
later.
unusual. Yeah, why don't you follow up with that?
All right. So if you go back and you look at our list, our robot need list, one of the things that we experienced along the 2019 season, and I'm sure everyone on this call did too, there were situations where if you needed to finish a rocket, the other team could shut you down by just simply parking, and you needed to be able to get to a certain spot. Most games, the best path is to go around, be faster. Lucien talked about this before. Be faster, be more agile, get around the defender so that you can keep making progress. But there was kind of a unique circumstance where you really needed to escort the other team out of your path for you to be able to complete that particular objective. We saw something similar. So when your strategy starts evolving to saying, all right, we want to be able to empty our feeder station in like 30 seconds or less. So that would mean like 15 shots made in 30 seconds or less. You start looking at the paths you can do that. So I'm sure everyone looked at the path from the feeder station up to the trench run. Is that right? Yeah. From the feeder station up to the trench run. There's a great opportunity if you're playing another team, and if I'm playing myself, I'm saying, well, let's just park someone there. Let's slow 125 down so that cycle becomes a lot longer, and it helps us, in the long run. So when you look at that, though, it's a protected zone once you get into the trench run. So we felt like the best course of action was to be able to just take another robot with us right into the trench run and scare the defense away that way. And that was a lesson learned from us from 2019. There was a lot of little design tricks that we picked up there too. And one of them is kind of an old FRC thing with wide wheels. We did some testing over the off season, and I have to admit, in modern FRC history and modern FRC thinking, it's kind of backwards to say that we're going to do these super wide wheels and we're just going to shove right through someone. But that's what we wanted to do. We kind of took a risk on that one, and it was all back to the same core strategy. 6 Falcon drive, 8-wheel drive, 3-inch wide wheels. We want to push you right into the trench run with us.
Great. So the next question is for Nathan. And I witnessed all of the prototyping on this. So what was your secret? What was our team's secret to shooting accurately, and what kind of struggles did you encounter in trying to become accurate in shooting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we definitely struggled with this one. For the first 3 weeks or so of build season, or maybe like 2.5-ish, we used kind of a pretty basic, plywood structure to test our shots. And we got it from 254, I believe the 2016 robot. They publish their documents on the robot every year. And we got this prototype design from them. We just applied it to this year, and we began testing. It's just a basic, 4-inch wheels with a fixed hood that we can kind of adjust the angle of by removing shafts or whatever. And so we kind of ran with that and realized we weren't really getting the accuracy we wanted, especially to shoot behind the control panel. And so we started testing different configurations. Obviously, we tested different compressions, but the real thing that helped our shooter accuracy was this top roller. The top kicker wheel, the 2-inch kicker wheel, is geared down. I believe it was running at about a third of the surface speed of the 4-inch wheel, or the 4-inch shooter wheels. So we had the 2-inch ones running at a third of the surface speed as the 4-inch shooter wheels. And that was really what improved our accuracy, and especially also our shot strength. So it just boosted both of those at the same time. And so it's really just about looking at, we know we want some backspin that improves the shot accuracy and the trajectory. And so how can we kind of direct that in the right place? And, after trying a bunch of different things, we found the top roller did that best.
So, Lucien, what was 118 doing on this front?
Yeah, I would say we had a very similar journey. We had developed a football shooter for when the Super Bowl was here in years ago. So we had this Nerf football shooter that we broke out, and we started shooting this dual wheel shooter. And we saw almost like that Sunday night of kickoff, we saw some crazy good accuracy out of what we call Archie for Archie mining. So Archie was shooting pretty good, but it's bulky. And as a matter of fact, I think it probably sports the same wheels, the 3-inch wheels that 125, or traditionally those big wide wheels that had been used. So that's how we had done it. And then so that kind of put us on to this dual wheel shooting. But we went off and prototyped our single wheel shooter with fixed hood. And then we had 2 separate teams, prototyping teams that did the upper wheel. And then we found that the upper wheel was magic to us, and that we just kept going back and we had to fine tune it. We did not, we had it coupled together at one point. We decoupled it. And then we have the inertia wheel that is, traditionally, I think in FRC, everybody had just loaded up the wheel with more weight. And then we had gone to this speed increasing inertial wheel. So we implemented that again this year. So that's kind of where we got our accuracy, was that also that top wheel. And we explored horizontal wheels, but horizontal wheels were not the answer from a backspin, controlling the spin of the ball into the goal. So that's where we were on that front.
I just pulled up a picture of the prototype here. If we can pan to a screen share, that'd be awesome.
See if they're doing it from the control. I don't have that ability at this end, I don't think.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, cool.
It up. Can you guys see this?
No, I think he put up the robot and the slides.
Okay. That's all good then. We can just move on. Just a screen
Yeah, we
share
did.
my screen.
While you try to get that, we did have one major lesson learned after decapitating ourselves on the control
There we
panel.
go.
Oh, there you are, Nathan.
Yeah, so this is just our robot cart. We've clamped this very, very thrown together setup to the top of it here. You can see there are these ramps coming down. That's how we loaded the balls. It's just a very primitive belt down here that's just driving them up into the shooter here. And this top roller is just clamped on after the fact. We made these plywood side panels clamped together with these 2x4s. Got a shaft going through with a flywheel from our 2017 robot that we had left over. And this was the setup. This was about the distance of halfway down the field from our shooter in this configuration. So it gives you an idea of what our setup looked like.
Yeah, our early prototype looked almost exactly like that. So it's funny just seeing other teams, totally different, isolated areas, still getting to the same place. And we found a lot of the same stuff as you guys did. Top wheel, it makes so much sense from like a physics perspective when you start looking at what you're trying to do. When you're increasing the surface speed on your main hooded shooter wheel, you're putting more and more spin the further and further that you try to throw it. So you're giving it more exit velocity, but you're also giving it more spin. At some point in time, that amount of spin just becomes superfluous. You don't need that much. And so what the top roller does is basically knock some of that spin back down and harvest it into exit velocity. And it's the aim small, miss small thing. So the harder you shoot the ball, the less chance it has to spread on its overall target. So just that simple kind of fundamental thing, turns into a whole different type of shooter architecture.
Yeah, and I think we study golf, so they have the same from a T-ball in the PGA. They have gone away from trying to spin a ball, and they try to just reduce the spin and have a mild spin, and that gets them maximum distance. And I think that we find a lot of the same similarities when it comes to this game, especially with these balls when they get torn up and when you put spin on them, that surface friction, how the airflow goes over the surface, just wildly throws those balls. And I mean, Roboteers certainly have got something going on there that says that they can just put any and all balls through their shooter. We find that we have some tolerance to lousy balls, but man, lousy balls eat us up pretty bad still.
Yeah, and Roboteers actually is such a really interesting thing. They found the same thing we did, which is that the longer time you give the ball to get up to speed, the better the accuracy will be at the end of the day. So if you're not trying to impart all of the speed, instantaneously, and you can get the ball up to speed over time, the shooter is more accurate. Like just every time that we made the actual physical wheel bigger, we found that. As we made the feeder faster, we found that. So the ball's getting up to speed as it hits the shooter wheel. So yeah, and then Roboteers, when you see that thing and the shots that it's making, it just, physics, man, like it all makes sense. It all clicks at once. So good job to them for pursuing what would seem like a wacky idea and then, just having amazing results.
Well, that's like long barrel cannons, right? So you look at the cannons, so the ones that were particularly in World War I that were shelling Paris, and the cannons were yards long, meters long. So yes. Okay. Oh, Adrienne, what did you folks do on accuracy?
I mean, honestly, we weren't really where we wanted to be, and we were learning from people like 118 and all these robots that had come out. But again, we were kind of in like the evolution of the season. We just wanted the shooter to put balls into the goal for our first competition. And then our plan was to work up towards better accuracy for the rest of the season. So we had a lot of plans, and now going forward, still have a lot of plans to get better accuracy. 118 at Plano, like they were nailing 3-pointers all day long. We did not have that accuracy that they did. And so we definitely spent a lot of time looking at their robot there to figure out what we can do to improve it. So I think we're going to spend a lot of time looking at that in 2021 for sure.
So I have a question from turning back to the Everybot for Lucien. So can you elaborate more on how you developed your strategies for the Everybot?
Sure. Can we bring up the Everybot slide, and we'll talk about them. So again, the alumni that come back to help with Everybot, we do the same strategy analysis that we do on the team, which is basically taking a spreadsheet, trying to figure out a lot of the details of how you're going to win the game and how it's a complement. Whereas 118's asking ourselves, what's the best teams on Einstein going to look like? We're trying to mimic that best team on Einstein. Whereas Everybot is what is the best complementary robot on Einstein or in the finals of a regional, and let's try to make it the best complementary robot. Basically the best second pick it could be. And that was quick climb, and then the ability to up the number of balls to get to the different stages for the spinner. So it's all about RPs. So if you just look at it from the standpoint of how do you complement an alliance to get to increase RPs, then that's kind of the flow of where we went with Everybot, which meant picking balls up off the floor. You could think, you could always go to the human player to get them, but that's a long journey. So let's be the scrappy robot that picks up balls off the floor and then deposits them in the logo, and then that gets your ball count to where you want to have one of your other two alliances do the spinner, and then you got to be over there, and you got to climb. So for instance, that had nothing to do with going under the control panel. So it was, but like I said, picking up the balls and shooting them there was certainly a discussion. But I think we came to our senses within probably hours, if not Monday afternoon, thinking that's not the right answer. And it probably happened Sunday. I think we published that list Sunday afternoon as to what Everybot robot will do. So that's kind of our thoughts, was the focus of complementary to make RP points, to maximize alliance's RP points.
Okay, so we have to wrap up there. There's 3 more workshops that you guys should, all the viewers should check out, and questions that we didn't get to, you can ask in those workshops. I'm sure they'll have great answers. And thank you for being here. So you could step on to the next workshop. Thanks much to everyone on this participating in this workshop.